Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Stillness in a Storm show. We have a very special interview for you this evening. It's going to be co-hosted with Jeremy McDonald, who is on the Stillness in the Storm team. And we have with us Jordan Sather of Destroying the Illusion. Now, Jordan has a YouTube channel called Destroying the Illusion. He features a lot of amazing content on there, daily news updates, health and education, occult news. I mean, Jordan's prolific insofar as what he shares, which is one of the reasons I love sharing his work on stillness. But Jordan also does a whole bunch of other things that are little known to the public. So hopefully we're going to get a chance to tease those out of him tonight. So Jordan, how you doing?
How you doing, man? Just that last sentence you said made me realize that I have zero idea of what we're actually going to talk about tonight. So
Perfect.
I'm excited now.
That's good. It's a leap of faith, man. It's a leap of faith.
That's right. And
is
we
your
got
peacock
Jeremy.
the same as my peacock? I think it is the exact same thing.
Oh, the backgrounds? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a variation on the theme. So,
Cool, man.
yeah.
Well, I'm
So,
excited. Let's get to it.
Yeah. So let me formally introduce Jeremy. Jeremy is an author. He has a new book that, or actually an old book that he's republishing, Peace Be Still. And he is on the Stillness in the Storm team. So welcome, Jeremy, as well.
Hey, everybody. Peace. Looking forward to it.
All right, so let's get into it. So Jordan, tell us a little bit about, let's start off with your awakening experience. What was the thing that woke you up?
Ooh, I would say there's two answers to that question. Unofficially, we'll say the church, because I had always had this deep-seated, when I was in high school, I was an atheist, but I had this kind of deep-seated feeling that something's wrong with the church. So I was really anti-Catholic Church. I remember doing presentations in multiple speaking classes that I had against the church, primarily for the abortion issue, but also for a few other of their tenets. And then I would say officially, as I went into college and didn't care about what I was studying, proceeded to drop out of college and started working at a health food store, then I would say the health field, because that what really is caused me to go down all the rabbit holes. I began to see what was going on with the pharmaceutical industry, with cancer cures, fluoride vaccines, GMOs. And naturally, once I found out what was wrong in that regard, I was hungry for everything. And luckily the people who I worked with knew about, chemtrails, Rothschilds and all that. So, it was quickly into pretty much everything. And of course the UFO issue, that was naturally thrown in there because it's all connected one way or another. And then I changed my views on religion, but got a whole lot of new views on the church as well. So, everything's morphed from there. So
Sure.
It's been about a six or 7 year process now.
Wow.
Because I think you started your awakening journey around 2010. Is that right?
Yeah, about 2011. And then I quickly found SITS. I remember your early stuff in 2013, and a lot of stuff you shared, impacted me for the past few years. So all the seeds, man. And then
Right.
only recently did I really get the courage to stick my head out there and start making content to help the evolution.
So just real quick. So I know you just started Destroying the Illusion this year. Am I correct? In the beginning of 2000.
The first video was January 30th.
What has
Wow.
that been? What has that been like as far as you're Jordan and then you're Jordan that everybody knows, and how does that change in your awakening process? What emotional things do you go through as far as that growth in that process?
Honestly, one of the reasons I started the YouTube channel was because I wanted to do the inner work. I knew, I was always in relationships growing up, personal ones, professional ones, family, friends. And I would always have this issue of not speaking out, not speaking my own truths, whatever the case was. So doing this YouTube channel, it was just an opportunity I saw in a niche that wasn't really filled. And it's like, I can get all this stuff on my mind out there. I can help people by doing so. And I took that opportunity and just kept doing it. And it's always a growth stage. My first videos were real awkward, and then it's kind of grown till now. And, I'm sure when you look back with SITS, it's like, oh man, the whole style's changed. The whole writing has changed. It's like, it's been such a evolution to see it all,
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So it's
shoot,
like a little brainchild of yours.
Yep.
And you see more people now, as we're into 2017, almost 18, so many people, it's getting exponential. How many people want to create like their little just avenue of expression, cathartic expression.
Precisely. Yeah. I remember when I first started sits, Stillness in the Storm, it was pretty much for the same reason. I had all of these, or Julian and I should say, Julian and I had all of these insights that we kept getting. We were listening to other people's shows and commentary, and it was good, don't get me wrong, but I felt like we could add to our insights and our gleanings to the big picture, and then kind of help in the collective awakening. I think that's part of what you do so well, is that you present the information with authenticity, but you also add your opinion. So it's kind of like you could even call it maybe guerrilla journalism or personal journalism. So we're not just being purely objective, we're also sharing our opinion with it, which I think is really helpful.
Yeah, totally. That's good. Guerrilla journalism.
Guerrilla journalism.
You didn't patent that yet, did you?
Hold on, let me go take care of it real quick.
It's like awesome. I stole digital nomad from Jordan. That's totally.
I like that one.
Nomad. That's what I want to do. You can share information anywhere, just on live stream.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Exactly.
So
I think what's really cool about how you've emerged as well is that, like you said earlier, there was a need that needed to be filled, and a niche that needed to be filled, and I had somebody speak to me many years ago, Debbie. I was actually in Morocco, and shout out to you, Debbie. And she said, Justin, if you want to have a successful business, you got to find a need and you got to fill it. And that idea really stuck with me. And I remember when we first started talking, Jordan, that, we were kind of mentioning ideas like that. And when you can fill that need with integrity, grace, and honesty and authenticity, I mean, wow, it's not even really hard. You just have to be yourself. And is that kind of what your experience has been? Are you kind of like letting your authentic self out there for the world to see?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my finding a need and filling it is a primary tenet of marketing, of business, and I come from a business background. I managed a health food store, and back in 2011, 2012, that was kind of the beginning of the health revolution. I wouldn't say beginning, but a definite uptick in it. And here I was trying to simplify very complex topics and also just switch their belief systems to people about this issue. And that was at the same time when I was going through that depressive stage of your awakening process, where it really hits you and you're trying to find yourself again. And I had gone to people on YouTube who had created their own, essentially, non-jobs or their own businesses while sharing their truths and opinions, but also helping people with. So I saw, essentially had a mentors from YouTube. So I saw these people filling the niche there. I saw this niche in the conscious community that wasn't filled. And what a better avenue than YouTube? It's just, and you did that with your blog. So that's primarily how it came about. Just all these things that intertwined together. And, you definitely helped me start it too. I'm not officially on the SITS team, but I kind of feel like I'm unofficially on it, because you were like, hey, here, use my blog, start just sharing your stuff. And I'm like, awesome, man. So that's the authenticity that really connects people together. And like you just said, you share your opinion with it. I say, I don't know the truth, but this is what it looks like to me. So, hey.
I think that's important what we're saying right there. And Jordan, what you're saying there is you've really said I wanted to speak out about the things that were on my mind. And you're saying I had to be authentic about it. And there are a lot of people out there, speakers and YouTubers, that aren't being very authentic. They're just kind of going out there to try to get views and subscribers and all that other kind of stuff. And you can tell. And I'm like,
totally.
And so when I watch your stuff, I'm like, wow, he's really into this, and he really is. This is coming from the heart. I think that's what that's the niche. Exactly what you're talking about. People are dying for that. They're just yearning for somebody to actually be real with them.
Right.
Kudos to you. So
totally. And sometimes basic is better. Like this simple whiteboard. How much easier can it get? And it's just here. So sometimes basic is better when bringing these ideas. And substance is really everything. That's it. Substance is everything. Who cares about the bells and whistles that are on top of it? Like you go to SITS, it's like basic, some sacred geometry, but then the best information. And I wouldn't say all the information, of course, because you even admit I don't have all the truth. And
exactly. Right.
That's the point of it, and it's all authenticity. And then of course Jeremy's on there, and Jeremy's just like, boom, I see him putting out videos like no other. I'm like, awesome. People just
Right.
being themselves, man.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's all about expression. I mean, I say it all the time. We're all in this together. And one thing that the theme or a technique that I wanted to have is, I was researching stuff. We all research stuff. We're all trying to figure out what the truth is. Nobody really has all the answers. But if we put what we have on the table, then we can learn mutually from each other. And I think we've kind of created a mini community as far as alternative media people in that regard.
Yeah, completely. And in the alternative media community, again, everybody has their own niche. So, and it all depends on what you're more into as well. I mean, each journalist has their own specific passions, and it's really interesting just to see who's each sharing their stuff. But then again, everybody just has a piece, and you never discard the pieces, and you never automatically accept them either. It's about going the middle path.
Right.
I think that's important what you guys are talking about there. And when you say the fact that, let's say, Jordan, you say something and I'm like, I don't know if I see it that way. And then we have a conversation about it. We have an actual conversation. Then from that conversation, I go, okay, I can see where you're coming from. And I had because of that conversation, I might have more of an awakening than I had before, because of the part of
Totally.
And so maybe
Right.
you had it just from that conversation as well. And I think that's like what Justin's saying is that we just put it all on the table and we all bring our niche and then we all awaken together. And so I guess that kind of leads me into another question I want to ask you is that besides the paid internet trolls, they're not, I don't want to go there. I'm talking about the ones that really we hit their buttons when we put something out. And what are some of the things for the other ones that are wanting to get out there and speak their truth? What advice would you give somebody that's wanting to start a YouTube channel or a blog or just get out there and speak about their truth, about the resistance that they're going to get? And what are some of the things that they could do to overcome that?
So like the honest resistance of friends and family.
Yeah.
Yeah. That always have compassion and understand, everybody has their own experiences and they've come across different information. So exactly what you just said, everybody has their own experiences. So you have to have a kind of detachment and understand that some people aren't there. You can't, as the old saying goes, you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink it.
Right.
And, you have to take that to heart, have compassionate detachment in the situation if they're just not getting it quite yet. But you need to understand that everybody is going to get it. And, if you're going to try to bring these ideas out, that's where we were kind of talking business style earlier. I've been researching into business a little bit lately, and I think some of the connotations of it are false because of money and people's ideas of money, but in a business standpoint, if you're doing it ethically and selling ideas, not necessarily product, but ideas to people, you can lead a horse to water, but you can make the horse realize like it's thirsty. You can make the water look a lot better for that horse to drink. Like, how are you bringing these ideas about as well? I mean, that's where a lot of the inner work comes into play. You're not letting your ego bring out this information, are you? You're not coming about it like, oh, you suck for not listening to this, or you're an idiot or something like that. Like, understand they all have their experiences. So you have to learn how to bring this information out in a loving way, but also find yourself in doing it. Some of the way I share information is kind of harsh. I get that. I share all of it. I give no shits. Other people are going to do it in much more compassionate ways. And it all kind of, each person has their own niche in that regard as well. So.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's really important especially when you're starting to do this work, if you're a perfectionist maybe, or you're high in conscientiousness, you may be trying to make things like really perfect. And that doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't, but if that prevents you from moving forward, then that's going to be a problem. What ends up happening is, especially through YouTube, what people like about a YouTuber is they provide a service, but then they also have a personality. So, and the more authentic you can be with that, the more honest you can be with that, the more that resonates with people. And you're not going to resonate with everybody, but that's okay. We have different flavors. That's why we're all in this together. So,
different flavors, totally. And that's the great thing with YouTube, is that you have video there. And people's biggest fear, I mean, it's often said the biggest fear of the population is public speaking, because you have to put everything out there, and especially live stuff. Like, you can't cut and paste things. So that's why I think the live video is important. Like, the more authentic you can be, the more people are going to be drawn to you and your message and see you for who you really are. And I think a lot of people in this, you know, all the truthing communities, alternative media communities, you know, some of them have secrets, you can tell. So
Right.
being your authentic self, and that'll show.
Precisely. Yeah, I wanted to ask one more question about the kind of business side, and then I wanted to switch gears into some topics of discussion. So this last question is, you know, we're all in the media, me, you, and Jeremy here. So I wanted to ask, have you gotten any flack from people because you promote, you have products that you promote, you have t-shirts, you have your Patreon, you have PayPal, you use Amazon. So you're using many different ways to generate revenue.
Yeah.
And some people in the kind of the ultra purist spiritual community would say, you know, if you're making money, then you're not pure and you're doing something wrong. So have you had any backlash with that? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Oh, yeah. I had backlash like that. And that is due to, you know, all the connotations of money and business and whatnot. But I think if you look deeper on the issue, again, I wish I could do the ultra purist life. And I completely wish I could have a dome home made with Reich style orgonite with a free energy device out in the middle of the woods, right, and all that jazz. But until I get there, you know, I'm filling my niche as well. And I'm trying to get a message out to the masses. And in my eyes, what I'm doing is using the system. Well, not only what I'm doing, what you're doing too. Like, certain people, we're using the system to beat the system.
Precisely.
And again, everybody has their own background. People don't know where I come from, the hardships I've endured. So until I get to a point where I don't need to use these systems and whatnot, I will use them. And in the cases I do, I make everything completely open source. You know, people can see how much money I make on Patreon. I have no problem open sourcing what I do, and that's the authenticity I bring. So people will draw to it. And yeah, I mean, until I can get to a point where I'm out in the middle of the woods and the prosperity funds hit or whatever, totally, I'm out. But yeah, we're doing this and building what we can, sharing information as we can, as long as we do it ethically. You know, what's the harm?
Exactly.
Do you think that some people have that? I mean, there's probably many different reasons why they have that attitude, but I mean, we also have people out there like what's his name, Joel Osteen, that is supposed to be this spiritual leader, but he lives in like this $10 million home, and so he's really not preaching a message. He's preaching one message, but then he's coming out and doing something totally different.
Yeah,
and I think
that's one of the most obvious examples.
Yeah, so, and that is one of the most obvious examples. It makes people feel uncomfortable because they're like, well, we believe in these people. And, you know, because I've gotten that flack before too. People have said, well, I don't think you should charge for what you do. And I'm like, well, you know, it's either that or I work 40 hours a week, and I can't work 40 hours a week and do this work. And it's totally very, very difficult to do. So,
yeah.
So I get what you're at.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll just chime in and say that, you know, there's nothing necessarily unethical with using resources.
Yeah.
Now, if for example, let's imagine that some drug dealer was doing some transaction and they had a briefcase with $250,000 in it, and they drop it and you find it, and maybe you even watch him lose the bag, so you know where it comes from. So you may be thinking to yourself, well, if I use this money, doesn't that mean I'm going to be unethical because the money came from an unethical source? Well, if using the money positively contributes to the continued proliferation of something that's negative, then yes, it would be. So if using the money meant that you were helping to somehow distribute drugs or participating in human trafficking, that'd be a different story. But when you take the money and then you use it for beneficial ends, you know, you create a YouTube channel, you start promoting good information that empowers people about health or whatever. Maybe you open up a soup kitchen, you know. It's what you do with that raw energy, because money is amoral. That's really what's the important thing. And that's kind of how I do my work. So
you explain white magic in some of the best ways that I've ever heard, because that's the exact principle. I mean,
right.
It's money. And the thing is, though, if you're going to play by their system, you're going to have to play by their rules. So, and that's, there's not, I don't think free money with Federal Reserve notes is something we should be striving towards. And one attitude I've kind of had lately, I'm like, it's almost fun, like playing by all of their rules and having success with it. It's like a challenge that you're overcoming, and it's fun to do. But yes, when we're over here, we should be using this money to establish a system where we're out of their control, and we have our sovereignty and our freedom over here. So again, we get this financial income, we're authentic about it, open about it, and we say we're doing it for these means. Nothing wrong with that.
Right. Exactly. So I wanted to switch gears here. Let's talk about some of the subject matter in your videos. And I know that's probably just the tip of an iceberg as far as the things that you research and you've been exploring, but you tend to cover some pretty consistent themes, one of them being the pedogate, or the revealing pedophilia in high places in government, things like this. Mm-hmm. And technology and health and, conspiracies and things like this. So out of all the topics you share, what do you think are the most impactful insofar as helping people wake up and empowering them?
Oh, man. I mean, it all depends on the person, of course, because everybody has their experiences. But some of the largest red pills, and, I'll answer it this way. I put out a Facebook status recently where I said, what's the most important thing to disclose? And I tried to list everything I could, like vaccines, GMOs, fluoride, secret space program, free energy physics, pedogate, all this stuff. And I just wanted to see what people would say, because the intent behind that was to almost make people see that it's all connected in one way or another. Everybody's going to have their own specific red pill. Many military guys, it's the technologies, because they don't get access to it. They're unacknowledged, and they're like, oh, I didn't see that. Many young moms, it's the vaccine issue, because their children are being harmed by it. And of course, all parents are everybody's getting pissed off about pedogate, because that's just how we perpetuate the species. Everybody's got a kid. So most people do. And it's different for anybody. But the biggest, definitely that issue, the pedogate and the sacrificial stuff. Once a person is up to the level where they accept that, the secret space program, because that's just interesting as shit. Mm-hmm. And of course it's important because of free energy. And then of course health, so vaccines and cancer cures, because cancer, 1 in 3 in people these days, something everybody can align with or resonate with, and vaccines too, because we all got them when we were little. So they all have their own specific toll on our consciousness, because everything, holistic with mind and body, it all plays into the awakening.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What I was just thinking about this, because there's what I found in my research is that there's just so many things there's so many bad things that are happening, as far as like the controllers and what they're trying to do to manipulate us and that kind of stuff. And it would be, if you weren't awakened, it could get to almost like you're almost hopeless. If it wasn't to the place where we're at, people that are watching that could get really hopeless and say, well, what can I do? And what are some things you could tell, people out there that they could do to start helping themselves not feel hopeless and feel empowered, and, help changing this world?
Totally. Begin to look into your situation and see if what you're doing with your life is really what you want to be doing. The best quote I could offer here is Joseph Campbell's "Follow your bliss." A lot of people want to be sharing information that's really passionate to them, and everybody has their own specific passions based on kind of how they grew up. So, is your passion exposing church truths? Well, there's different ways where you can start making that happen, or different creative means where you could do that. Or some people's is music, or some people's, of course, health. And, find ways to get your creative passions out there, art, dance, even, get connected back with yourself, who you are, and the relationships in your life. You know, are there any relationships you need to fix or maybe leave behind? And that's really where we're at, all connecting together, because that's how we're going to move forward here. The way we're so lost is because we've all been so divided. So
Good.
Certainly.
Thanks.
Yep.
that's what I would say.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I know we've talked a lot about secret space program and whatnot in our work. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about this, because I know you're involved with I believe the book is called "A Case for the Secret Space Program" with Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Sala and Corey Good. So
Mm-hmm.
is there any updates, or do you want to give an overview of what that project is?
So that project, there's been a lot of hardship that's gone on this summer, a lot of things that have happened, and challenges. So the book is entitled "The Case for a Secret Space Program," and it's a collection of work from, of course, Dr. Michael Sala, his great writing, Dr. Rob Wood and his document authentication abilities, and then the testimonies of William Tompkins and Corey Good. Of course, we've had William Tompkins pass away about exactly a month ago, almost, and just all the attacks that have gone on, crazy stuff. So that project's still coming. It's more of a project. We have a website coming out. We have a series of books and videos and different, ways you can spread the message, whether it's apparel with a shirt on it or brochures and things like that, just ways to get this information out there. And I think it's going to be a big movement. Like, it's going to be a hub where we can get one of those issues, the secret space program, which is so deep with all the sciences and the things that have been hidden from us and how out there it might really go. So it's going to be a central hub for that, and a lot of great information on there. And it's going to be one piece, Vaxxed is here with that issue. Jeffrey Smith is there with GMOs. Secret Space Program, the case for it is going to be there with that issue. And then it's going to be like everybody and then sits and destroying the illusion. Of course, we try to synthesize everything. So it's just going to be one hub for one of the topics. And then you have those people who kind of do their passion and bring in everything.
Cool.
Right.
Very, very cool.
So it's going to be really cool.
Definitely. I know when we were at Contact in the Desert this year, you were showing me some information about body knowledge. So I had mentioned to you, I have this kind of weird thing where it feels like one of my legs is longer than the other, and I've had these weird hip pains. And you're like, I don't know, that your leg's probably not longer than the other. You probably have some, you forget even the word you mentioned. Then you showed me a couple exercises, and I started doing them within like a month. I just started to feel an improvement just in my posture and my health. And, health is important. Like, your status of being, your well-being is really essential psychologically for, hardship facing challenges, learning, growing, that kind of thing. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, because it sounded like you're really knowledgeable. What is the name for that topic, and can you describe a little bit about it?
Yeah, I mean, my specific name for it, because everybody just names different things, their own stuff. You could call it body consciousness, or just understanding your actual physical being, because they always say know thyself, and that's the epitome of it. And I think and it's very important to be understanding of your own person. So there's posture, your musculoskeletal system, your nervous system, there's diet, there's nutrition, and that's what I was really big into. And it was interesting because I had worked at a chiropractic clinic for a little bit in time, and it was very eye-opening how intricate the human body really is, but also how, again, the term holistic, that's another manifestation of that. And when you look at your nervous system, we have to feed it, of course, and keep our physiological system healthy, but also understand how our body is set up as well. Because if you have your spine out of line, even the slightest pressure could reduce energy flowing through it. And they always say we're beings of electricity. Well, your nervous system is what's moving that electricity. So you're going to want your spine in alignment. And there's one fact I read one time where it said even the weight of a dime on your spine can reduce the electrical transmission through it by 50%.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's pretty heavy on your spine. But you see people's spines these days. It's rampant with how sedentary and reduced to chairs and desks and cars we really are. So actually taking the time, taking the effort and the discipline to literally move yourself and get your spine back into alignment will help the energy flow, and that'll just help everything. It'll help you connect into your higher self, help your brain work better, your body work better, and everything. So
I think it's pretty fascinating because just getting to know you over the past month is the amount of things that you've done on your journey. Like when I first met you, you talked about you worked at the health food store and you've worked at a chiropractor, and then that got you into health, and then that got you part of your, like, every step has been your awakening process. And the fact that the higher, these little things helped you to understand you have to be body conscious, and and then you started awakening. I mean, and that's kind of how it works for everybody. We all look back.
Some spiritual people will be like, oh, you're your God, your mind, your spirit, your everything. You're not your body. But to me, it's like, well, when I actually make myself more conscious, when I read physics and spiritual principles and all that jazz, there's the yin and yang concept, there's the physical and metaphysical concept. So the physical universe is half of what everything is. So if you utilize that as best you can, then you really, really will be able to get into the metaphysical part of it, have an easier time doing that. They say all is mind, of course, but you use your body to make your mind better. You could say the body is the mind. So I mean, right. That's, again, substance is everything. And I think in this conscious community, we really need to bring the substance back into it. All the boring shit we're not taught in school, right? Yeah. All the stuff we really should have been told, but it's like, it's a boring university. We're gonna have to relearn and make ourselves again, but it won't be really boring because it'll be us actually learning about ourselves and actually understanding how to move and eat and be healthy, and the real history and real language, what our DNA actually is, and all that jazz.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think the one theme that you bring through a lot with a lot of your information, even just news updates, because you encourage people to think, is empowerment. There's this kind of meme or rhetoric out there that says, well, because the quote unquote cabal is in control and we were genetically created species, allegedly, and the whole world is a giant control matrix, that you're just screwed. There's no hope for any type of redemption. There's no hope of trying to get yourself together. And I don't really think that's the case. I think in my observation, in my experience, the knowledge that we learn, even the crazy information about like Pedogate, can actually be really empowering for your own personal life to make you actually more fulfilled and happy. And would you think that's something that you've discovered in your own work?
Absolutely. Good and bad is just perspective. It's, everything's becoming so polarized right now as we progress through into this new age. And really, whatever your brain is focused towards, that's exactly what you're inviting, and people are gravitating towards that specific message. So the only thing you can say is, what do you want? Do you want to be a negative Nancy Pants and invite that kind of world into your life? Or do you want to just have a positive message and see things in a better way? And if you do that, the universe will give that to you. And that's what I see. So that's what I convey through those videos. I'm like, shit's changing. It's kind of turbulent. It's kind of, a little rocky, but we can make it better. And it's not it's going to be work, but it's going to be fun work, stuff we're going to want to do. So let's all do that. And who really can't get behind those kind of messages? It seems weird to me, but I get it. It's been a bitch. And I know a lot of people are jaded with how shitty things have been, but it's that much more enticing to get over that victim mentality and get over the challenge and build this world for a better. So what's the use? What's the use whining and complaining, really?
Oh, exactly. And I mean, Jeremy, I'm sure you can echo this too. In my own experience and doing the kind of social work, the life coaching work, I have discovered that when you have a challenge, when you have some type of hardship or issue you're facing, or whatever it happens to be in your life, meeting it head on and figuring out a way to solve it is not only going to take the stress off of your plate because now you've dealt with the problem, but it actually ends up catalyzing and activating potentials that you didn't even know were there. So you may have to deal with some issue with changing your diet because you just discovered you have a food allergy, but in the process of doing so, you're probably going to learn about health and become more healthy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Totally.
absolutely. Yeah. And it just kind of dovetail on that. It's that we're going to have these things thrown at us in life, and they're going to be, challenges, or so to speak. And when you, exactly what you're saying, if you handle it head on, it's like, this is how pearls are formed. They're formed through friction. And so, and it's okay to have those things happen, but also speak the truth. I mean, pedogate is not cool. So
Right.
Yeah,
it's,
totally.
I mean, I every time I watch one of Jordan's videos, or I've read it on sits, I mean, my stomach starts to turn. I'm not okay with it. And
Yeah. And that's a lot of people, that visceral reaction occurs and they run. But the thing is, you have to let yourself feel that emotion, let
yeah,
yourself feel that pain, and let that catalyze you into making this world a better place. So, yes, it's nasty, but the spiritual lesson is being able to handle the realities of it and do something about it and talk about it, and get that kind of stuff off this planet and get sustainable, equitable humanitarian systems back into play here.
Precisely. I wanted to ask you a little bit of personal questions, not too personal, but kind of let people see behind the curtain of what is Jordan Sather and Destroying the Illusion. So I know you do a lot of research. When you putting together your videos as far as news, are you figuring out the news like that day? Are people sending you items? Like, what's some of your process?
Oh, good question. You know, kind of all around. Some people do send me articles. I scroll through either the Twitter timeline or the Facebook timeline, and I have specific things as see first, or specific places I'll go. And one trick though that I said to somebody just recently is that I actually don't go to many alternative news websites. I don't go to them that much. What I suggested is that go to the mainstream news to see the information they're peddling out. But what you really want to do is study the history and actually take the time to go through the long stuff. Like, what's Hillary Clinton's history? What's the history of these some of these politicians, or some of these ideas like the secret space program or pedogate? Like, take the time to build that back knowledge, and then when you look at the news as what's going on now, you can see, I don't want to say crystal clearly, but you can get a much better intuition as to what's going on behind the scenes. Because again, more consciousness leads to better intuition, better subconscious feelings. So you get a really good feel for what's happening now. And that's exactly why I say I just speculate here. I don't know really what's going on, but because of this knowledge I have, and I spit it out, as I can to try to educate. There's always more though. It's this is how I feel. So that's primarily what I would suggest people to do.
Mm.
that's
Great.
actually important. You just made me think about something just now when you were talking about that, because I was of course a young 20s, about your age, in the time when the Clintons were still in office, or Bill Clinton was still in office. And I remember around that time the news was started to talk about him and treason. And very shortly after that, because he had made some deal with, I don't remember all the back stuff. You probably actually know more about it than I do. It was in China. They had made some deal with China that was it was treason against the country. The very shortly after that, we're talking about a blowjob in his blowjob,
Interesting.
and so it's diversion. And
Right.
so I was just thinking, but because I've watched this movie called The Clinton Chronicles. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah,
About
with
when he
Larry
was
Nichols.
Yeah, and I already knew he was crooked and all that kind of stuff. I thought to myself, what the fuck is going on? and it just
Yes.
and it just triggered with me recently, because here in Florida, all the parks are closed down. The hurricane happened over a week ago.
Right.
And there's still like hundreds of electric trucks, and the power is mostly on. Why do we still have electric trucks in Florida? And that makes me then I go and I remember the parks. I'm like, Clinton sold us to the fucking Chinese in the 90s. And so there's something going on here in Florida, and it just makes you go, huh, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And it just, what you're saying, your intuition starts to kick in and go,
Totally. And yeah, as you begin to see, you know, how the game is played. You can get better at seeing the chess game and how certain moves, and you can just see a piece of news on the mainstream media and get a feel for what's really going on, or hear a politician's speech and see how there might be some double speak behind it and what they're really saying. So,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I wanted to ask you, as far as like topics of information, because I know through the discussions I've had with you that you're obviously into health and news and things like that, Secret Space Program, but you also, I believe you were reading a book a few months ago about Carl Jung, and then you were also reading about some of the alternative physics, because you did a presentation on that at Eclipse of Disclosure of Dewey B. Larson, one of your segments. So what did those influences have in your personal awakening?
oh, intense. I mean, finding Dewey B. Larson, had always studied it because you posted some stuff on Sits about it. So this was, 2013, 14, I believe. And then David Wilcock had also posted some stuff about it as well. And one of his insiders that he had at one point, his name went by the name of Daniel. He had a website called conscioushugs.com where he did some great write-ups on Dewey B. Larson and the physics. And there's other websites as well. I think some of his books are even online. But again, it's finding out what's really going on here. And a lot of good minds have written about Dewey B. Larson's physics model. And I don't know, how much time do you want to kill? I can talk a lot about this. It's like a full unlearning. Well, Dewey B. Larson was said to be, his reciprocal systems theory is said to be the closest to what's really real. I mean, that's been said by quote insiders, and even channeled material like the Law of One has said that. And Dewey B. Larson's physics, he wrote a book called Nothing But Motion in the late 70s, I believe, or early 70s. But what he had said is space and time are the same thing, but it's like a scientific manifestation of yin and yang, whether it's called the reciprocal systems theory, because space and time, in this reality, in this physical reality we're in, we have 3 dimensions of space, 1 of time. Well, reciprocal systems, there's also a metaphysical reality, or what he called the cosmic sector, this being the material sector, where time is 3 dimensions and space is 1. Mm-hmm. So with these reciprocal systems, then you get to play, okay, there's only 3 dimensions. That's all we get. When people talk like 5-dimensional or 12-dimensional, I'm like, I don't know how you could freaking turn that many. It doesn't make logical sense to me.
Right.
But when you look at it as densities, right? Okay, when you're traveling time, or you're going into that metaphysical realm, there could be different densities there where other beings could be residing, and they could, be right next to you and you just don't see them. As the electromagnetic spectrum is this long, we only see that much of it. Well, they could be residing in that different density. So that's kind of some ideas around the reciprocal systems theory. And one other piece is that it said that gravity and radiation are also a yin and yang to each other, which errs along the lines of some of Walter Russell's research as well. And with gravity and radiation being a yin and yang, gravity is that inward push that makes up everything. It's the creative force. And radiation is that destructive force. And you need both to perpetuate life. So, yeah, that's just some insights behind his research. And kind of got off on a tangent there. What was the other one? Jung, right?
Yeah. I forget. I think the book is like King something. Better than me.
There's Carl Jung. Just a lot of his psychoanalysis is, it's amazing, and I think it's what we should be taught in schools beside Freud's.
Right.
Freud's bullshit. But some Jungian psychoanalysts that were understudies of him. One was Dr. Robert Moore, who created a book about archetypes called The King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. I believe he actually did work with Campbell, or might have been a student of his, Dr. Joseph Campbell. But yeah, just the study of archetypes is profound, and a lot of authors have their own specific version of it. And the tarot is one version of understanding our minds, understanding our psyche, or the consciousness through archetypes. Jung has his 22, I believe, and then Campbell's The Hero's Journey, and Dr. Robert Moore's book. So fascinating stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Understanding how our brains work and the universe is mind. So why not try to get it and,
Oh,
heal
exactly. I
ourselves?
mean, and I think you recently read the Kai Bullion, which is another really good. I think that's actually really good intermediary work. So if you're trying to like piece the really kind of heavy science with like the consciousness, that piece of book information, the Kai Bullion about natural law, hermetic philosophy, is really interesting because it weaves all these points together. And one thing that I kind of discovered in my awakening is that these
You mean this
things
one right here?
that's it
That one on the
exactly.
bookshelf? There you go. Oh,
Bingo.
hey.
Yeah.
You mean that one, King Warrior?
There you go.
The
See,
Jordan Sather
he actually
bookshelf.
has these books, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. We're not just blowing
I've
smoke up
read
your ass.
most of them and part of some of them. So
Right. But yeah, I was just going to say that like it's these things, these aspects of consciousness, like archetypes, like form, are really primordial to existence itself. So even though you may not think that, physics or cosmology fleshes itself out in terms of archetypes, it really does from a certain perspective. So when you study eclectically, when you study a whole bunch of different topics, you kind of see how there really is like this one truth reflected in all things.
There's a
And
correlation and everything. Yeah.
exactly. Would you say that you've kind of had that experience that you can, as you study things, you start to see the same basic themes as far as pure truth being reflected everywhere?
oh, dude, I'm so glad you mentioned the Kybalion because that's like it's the blueprint. It's the archetypal, just
Yes.
kind of and all the blueprints are there's different ones, but some of them are just it's something you can't even put into words really. There's just feelings. They're just certain kind of laws, the best way to put it. But it's how everything really works, and it's manifested in all. So again, the 7 laws that are in the Kybalion, everybody's heard of the law of correspondence, as above, so below, and that you can deduce so many different situations by seeing that. The collective doesn't get healthy until we get healthy, and if we're
Right.
spending our money with our choices at small levels, then the big companies and the collective still get stronger and things like that. Or there's the what is it? The different laws there are in there. The law of vibration, everything vibrates. Law of polarity, that's the yin and yang law. Fascinating stuff that just helps you get it, helps you see everything so much clearer.
Precisely. Yeah, I would say it is the meta model for knowledge. So you need, in psychology, they talk about a priori structures. So there needs to be some type of basic structure there just so you can learn anything or even experience anything. And when you learn about natural law, especially the Hermetic style, for some reason it seems to be a really good tool. Then it kind of acts as like a primary foundation for all this other knowledge that can come and just like lock right into it. So
Yeah.
Funny you should guys bring that up. I actually was in a meeting over a year ago, and we were talking about starting a school, and a person said to me, "I don't think natural law should be the first thing we teach. Nobody's going to care." And I'm like, "That's the basis of everything.
right.
If you don't understand the law, you're going to like mess up your entire life. Why wouldn't you teach that?" And I think that there's a lot of people, and Jordan, I don't know, there's a lot of people that are really ignorant of natural law, and they don't really fully understand what they're doing in their lives.
Yeah, this is law. Again, one of those things that kind of needs a redesign of how we understand it is law. And it's not, law is not the legal codes and statutes that many people subjugate themselves to in this society. Law is how the universe functions. And then,
Right.
we can redesign each system we have around understanding that. Scientific structures, legal structures, economical and health structures around all of that. So
Exactly.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe you did a presentation at ECETI earlier this summer. Is that right?
Yep.
What was your presentation on?
I did it on the Secret Space program was a large part of it. I kind of started with, it was my first presentation ever, so I was a little nervous, didn't know exactly
Sure.
what to present too much on. A little bit of it was the Dewey B. Larson physics that I explained.
Right.
And discussing, the illusion, who controls us, and how do we get over that. So
Right on. Nice.
yeah, pretty yeah, a lot of that stuff, and talked about William Tompkins a little bit in there as well. So
Right. Yeah.
Ode to him. Rest in
Yeah,
peace.
definitely. Rest in peace, William. Okay. Well, moving forward, I know you have some cool projects that are coming up here. Do you want to talk a little bit about them?
Yeah, man. So some of the cool things coming out. I'm doing a webinar later this month on September 30th called The Science of Ascension, and that's for the Portal to Ascension group. It's going to be real cool. I'm going to talk about a little more in depth about some Dewey B. Larson physics in that, actually explain what's going on with our sun and how that's, the whole cyclical ending and beginning, what's going on there, how that's going to change our bodies, our DNA. I'm excited because, Dan Winter's on that. Of course, I can't talk DNA as good as he can, but it's just
I don't know if
super
anybody
exciting
can.
on there. And I'll just give my perspectives as what we can do to best navigate these times of ascension and do our best to influence what's going on here. And then also working on a personal webinar. I want to get a lot of this health stuff out, so I'll be doing my own independent health webinar so people can have actually just the raw data, because that's what they need. So I think, lots of webinars are going to be coming out, lots of different informational things that people can get just to start re-educating all of ourselves. So that's what I think we really need to do here, is just everybody start putting out their own, whether it's free ebooks or videos. We're already doing plenty of writing and videos, so there's nothing wrong with monetizing some stuff that comes out, maybe some info products to, get some resources to make more stuff and just continue with that education. So anyway,
And
I got
right.
ranty there.
No,
Project-wise, yeah. 2 webinars, stuff.
2 webinars. And where can people go to sign up for the first webinar? I think that's the one that's officially ready, isn't it?
Yeah. Just go to the portaltoascension.com, I believe, or Google Portal to Ascension. Click on that, and the webinar will be right on there.
Okay.
Or I believe I have it on my website. If I don't, I'm going to put it up there before you post this interview. And then, so either of those or my Facebook,
great.
I'll be posting it sporadically before.
Yeah, and we'll put it in the description of the YouTube video as well. And I also wanted to ask you, because I see you do a lot of stuff on Patreon. So you wanted to talk a little bit about that, because it seemed like there's some really cool things happening there too.
Yeah, with Patreon, I just kind of use that as a behind the scenes / talk to people. I don't put out too much informational content on Patreon because, in my opinion, just the more information I can get out there, the better. And I have confidence that the universe will compensate me in some way for that.
Right.
Compensate me. But on Patreon, yeah, it's just behind the scenes stuff. So thank everybody who signs up. I don't tier it. Many people tier Patreon because you can make people who donate $10 can get this, and $50 get this better thing, and $100 this awesome thing. I just say, hey, thank you for whatever you can donate. I treat everybody the same way on it, whether it's $1 or $100. But yeah, thank everybody that signs up on that. So
awesome.
Get to know a little more about me that way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's one way to interact. I know that you recently posted about your webinars. That's how I knew about them. And
thanks, man.
You were asking for feedback. So it's a really good way for people to get involved. I mean, you don't have to use Patreon, but it's one way of creating that social link. So yeah, just wanted to mention that. Now, Jeremy, are there any last minute questions we have for our illustrious guest here?
No, I mean, you asked that question I was going to ask about the webinar, because I knew about it because he had asked me if I could help him, and then I guess he got his help a couple weeks ago, and he's doing. So I knew about it, but I was waiting for him to come out about it. So
right on.
I think we're good. I've really enjoyed the interview and getting to know Jordan more.
Awesome, thanks
Definitely.
you guys.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for coming. Definitely check out Destroying the Illusion YouTube channel. I think you're redoing your website too. Are you going to keep the same URL, or?
Yeah, it's just jordansather.com. And from there, I'm going to have links to whatever I'm working on, or whatever you can, find my face and my rants and my work. So
awesome. Okay, cool.
Cool, guys.
Cool.
Well, great. Well, thanks for coming. Keep up the great work. I'm sure we'll be talking more and working together more in the future. We're all kind of in this this great work together of trying to make the world a better place, and it's really good that we have you, Jordan Sather, to help us with this. So keep it up.
Thanks, guys.
All right, man. Take
Big
care.
shout out to Sitz for everything you guys have done as well. So
Thanks,
Thank
Jordan.
you.
totally.
Much love. All right, everybody. Take care. Thanks for listening, and we will have another interview for you next week. You can see other interviews by Stillness in the Storm at the Stillness in the Storm YouTube, and of course, check us out at stillnessinthestorm.com, and we appreciate all your contributions.
So we have Teresa coming up next, and then Laura Eisenhower in October. So yeah, those are our next interviews. So just
nice, awesome.
Yeah, that should be good. So
Power of the woman, the rise of the divine feminine, man.
The rise of the
that's
divine
right. That's right. So yeah. All right. Well, take care, and until next, be well.
Bye. Thanks.